Details on the screen for our audience. It would send aid to struggling state and local governments, send another $1,200 directly to taxpayers, provide $100 billion for rental assistance, $75 billion in mortgage relief, allocate $3.6 billion for election security, and provide a $25 billion post office bailout. Senate Republicans oppose the package as is. Where do the negotiations stand?
Sure.
Durbin.
Well, let me tell you, it heads to the Senate where Tammy and I will get our chance, I hope soon. Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, has said that he feels no sense of urgency about considering this. I couldn't disagree more. Coming home to Illinois and speaking to people every day on the phone, there's a real sense of urgency. We're up to over 40 million unemployed in America, a dramatic number in Illinois. This would extend unemployment benefits. If we don't do anything, they end August 1st. Secondly, it would extend the program for loans to small businesses. This morning I was on the phone with the Restaurant Association. We want our restaurants to reopen. They need a helping hand. We need to continue to give them.
Under the CARES Act that they can't get yet because their babies were born in 2020 instead of 2019. So there's a lot in here that will help, that will really help working families. I just wish Mitch McConnell would wake up to the fact that not everyone is a millionaire, and let's care about working families for a change.
Senator Duckworth, I'll start with you. As Congress continues to help Americans financially during this difficult time, are you worried about how the country will pay for the trillions of dollars actually spent? Will it be on the backs of our children and grandchildren and in their pocketbooks in years and years, decades down the road?
Well, I think what we need to do first and foremost is really stimulate the economy and get it going. And listen, with everybody laid off from work, if we don't do something, we would be in even worse shape than we are right now. You could see a huge mortgage crisis with this country, with people being evicted and not being able to pay their mortgages. So there's no other option but to make sure that we provide funding through the CARES Act. And then when we turn around, we need to go ahead and stimulate the economy. I am, for one, a big supporter of post-pandemic, a national infrastructure investment program, and that would actually bring money into local economies all across this country. So there are things that needs to be done, but inaction is really not an option here because we would be in worse shape than we are right now.
Senators, wanted to get to a viewer question. Sandra from Berwyn sent us a question. We have several questions that have come in. We're going to try to get to a lot of them tonight. Sandra asks, what will be done for healthcare workers who've been overworked and separated from their families throughout the pandemic? Senator Durbin.
Well, I think we ought to start by making sure that they get some sort of reward, economic reward, for the sacrifices they've made. Those of us who read in the paper or watch on television know that the lifestyles of these healthcare workers is something we can never, ever repay and forget. I mean, they are literally risking their lives every single day. They're worried about bringing home this virus to their families. Many of them are going through stress, the likes of which they've never had in their professional lives. And I think we ought to make sure that any provision in the future to reward good conduct remembers these healthcare workers and other essential care workers outside of the healthcare scene. There are men and women risking their lives working in nursing homes. They're risking their lives working in our grocery stores. And these are folks that need to be remembered as well.
Yeah, I agree with Dick. You know, our healthcare workers obviously include our heroic nurses and doctors and CNAs and our clinicians, but let's not forget about the janitors who are cleaning those hospital rooms. Let's not forget about all the folks who are suddenly on the front lines of this global pandemic, who never signed up to be on the front lines of the global pandemic. The person who actually keeps my daughter supply with chicken McNuggets, for example, who have to go to work every single day because they're essential workers. These are folks we need to watch out for. So there are two Democratic proposals out there. One would be to increase the pay for folks who are in the healthcare line by $15 an hour up to $25,000 a year. And another proposal that is got quite widespread support is to create a heroes injury compensation fund, much like the 9/11 Heroes Compensation Fund. This is, unfortunately, if our healthcare workers do lose their lives because they contracted the COVID-19 on the job, there should be a fund to help their family members survive and survive and continue. So there's a fund that we're proposing to create, much like the 9/11 Heroes Fund. And both of these proposals are out there on the table right now.
Let's move on to those ever important stimulus checks. One of the big questions is, how is Washington helping to improve this process to get that money into the hands of Americans? And now we've got round two with those debit cards, which are in some homes being mistaken, right, for even garbage. People don't even know what to make of them quite yet. What do you all see as a good solution to get that money where Americans need it most?
I can tell you the House bill increases the cash payment. President Trump came up with the original proposal. It was supported by Democrats and Republicans. $1,200 for each adult, $500 for each child. And as Tammy said, we overlooked some. Well, we got to make sure that we change the system in the future to take care of them with the previous check. But many of these families still need financial assistance, cash assistance. And what we proposed in the House of Representatives is $1,200, both for the adults and for the children. I think that's an essential part of this. The question asked earlier, how can we afford this? Believe me, when we have advice from the chief of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, a very conservative Republican leader, who says now is the time to get this economy back and strong, or you ain't seen nothing yet when it comes to debt and deficit. So we've got to do this to help the families, and these cash assistance checks have really come to the rescue of a lot of people.
Let's do another viewer question, Senators. This one comes from Amy in Shabans. Why were dependents over the age of 18 excluded from receiving stimulus checks, including college students and some seniors, as well as some of the disabled? Senator Duckworth.
Well, some of that has been fixed. It was originally some oversight in the language when it comes to some of the seniors and disability communities. So seniors can actually, even if you don't pay taxes, can go to the website and put in your information so that you do get your payments. Originally, because this whole thing is based on the tax year, it was based on people who paid their taxes, and that's where the IRS, because it was easy as they had those addresses and those bank accounts, sent that money to them first. And so we pushed the administration pretty hard, and they set up the web page where you can go. It's called Where's My Payment, I think, or Where's My Stimulus Payment, where you can go and input your information. So, and I've actually been doing it for some of my family members and some of my friends who are senior citizens, as well as those in the disability community. You know, as far as for children over the age of 18. They can apply to get their own, if they pay their own taxes, they can apply to get their own $1,200 payments, and they don't have to get the $500 through their parents.
Very good. We want to turn now to one of our viewer questions that came to us via video. This comes from KRISTIN from Chicago.
Illinois' phased reopening plan predicates a return to a pre-COVID-19 normal, phase 5, on the development of a viable treatment or vaccine. Now, while a significant amount of research is occurring around the world, what happens if it takes multiple years for either of those things to occur? And what if they don't occur at all? Despite best efforts, there is no guarantee that an effective treatment or vaccine will be developed or developed quickly. What happens then? Do we remain in phase 4 indefinitely?
Good question. And we'll start with you, Senator Durbin.
Well, of course, it's a very important question. And I, for one, support the effort to use all of the expertise and resources in America to come up with a safe and effective vaccine for our country and to share with the world. But that vaccine may be discovered in some other country. There are tests underway, about 100 of them in countries around the world. The United States should participate in this global conversation to find this vaccine cure. Now, the person who sent the question in, KRISTIN, basically asked the question, well, what if we don't find a vaccine? Well, it raises a serious issue. How do we continue if the COVID virus is still out there? Some people, of course, having been exposed to it once, have antibodies, at least we believe to some extent. Others are going to change lifestyles and limit their exposure. We hope contact tracing will even make us safer. But it's going to be a perilous situation absent a vaccine like the polio vaccine came around and finally liberated us from the fear that many of us had.
We have about a minute left. Just wanted to ask you to share your perspective. Obviously, so much has changed in this country during the COVID-19 emergency. When it comes to protests, group gatherings, it seems like there's a political divide even over wearing the masks. How do you think this is going? How long do you think this is going to last? How do we come together in this crisis?
Well, I think we start off by having a commander-in-chief, a president in the White House who does not stoke those divides, right? We need to set the example as political leaders, as those who are in government, for the support of healthcare and to believe and listen to science. And our scientists who are not political have all said the same thing. We need to wear these masks so that we can protect our loved ones. I live in a household with 2 kids under the age of 5 and a 79-year-old. My 79-year-old mother lives with me. So it is imperative that we all protect each other by wearing these masks and listening to our healthcare providers and our scientists. And that's how we move forward. These protesters, let me just say, are one group that are out there. I think the vast majority of Americans are actually listening to scientists and are doing the sensible thing, which is to limit our contacts, but then to keep ourselves and our family members and our neighbors safe. That's what we need to do, is to look out for one another. We can come together and we can survive this, but only if we come together as a group. And we can't just listen to those on the fringe.
Senator Durbin, a quick thought from you before we wrap up?
Well, I can tell you, as one person said, this pandemic, this virus is not going to break us, but it's going to teach us where parts of our system are broken. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to healthcare, there are still disparities we cannot defend in America. People of color and those in poverty have a much greater chance of being infected and dying from this than others. It really calls on all of us to remember this is a nation of one people coming together with justice for all, and that includes healthcare.
It will be interesting to see how history remembers it all. Thank you so much to Senator Dick Durbin, Senator Tammy Duckworth, for your time. We appreciate your insight, the Washington perspective.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take our first break now, but we invite you to stay with us. Coming up on your Illinois Town Hall, responding to COVID-19.